Johnny promised me he would ruin me, that he'd ruin my career, he'd take my life from me.
She brought up the situation of the fecal matter on the bed, and she just tried to blame it on the dogs.
I know how many people will come out and say whatever for him. That's his power. That's why I wrote the op-ed.
You just said you don't recall you were begging for any drugs?
No, I don't, but I do recall being in great pain and great distress, so...
He is a very powerful man, and people love currying favor with powerful men.
Yeah. Mere snippets of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard from the 100 hours of testimony that we've heard from multiple witnesses over the course of the Pirates of the Caribbean star's defamation trial against his ex-wife. We finally have a winner, J.Law, technically. But are there actually any winners in this? We will discuss that. Plus, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has unveiled an historic ministry with the highest number of women ever. But will it actually make a difference? And also, working from home. A topic that is close to both you and my heart. Sometimes we can do it, sometimes it's actually impossible. Elon Musk has waged war on this pandemic trend. I'm Georgie Tunny.
And I'm James Law.
And this is Flash Drive. J-Law, what a week.
I know, right?
We haven't seen each other for a while. How are you? What
I'm
you been
good.
doing?
I've been away for the past week. I took some time off after the election because I thought it was due.
Unapproved by me, can I just say. I've not approved that time off, but whatever.
Sorry,
I know you're
sorry.
technically the boss, but okay, sure.
Anyway, I went up to Darwin, which I'd never been to before.
I've never been to Darwin.
It was pretty fun. And, saw some crocs.
Okay, but are they actually scary?
Yeah. So we saw them in the water, saw them sunbaking, and they're like...
Proper huge?
Just huge,
Yeah.
and just dinosaurs that live among us.
I think they'd be something like, I don't know about you, but I get this whenever I go to a zoo or I watch a nature documentary where I look at a giraffe, I know it's real, it's in front of me, but they can't be real. They can't exist. They don't make sense. Is that like the crocodile? I would see a crocodile and I'd think it was a statue. So a real life one, and it would move and I might die on the spot.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to comprehend. But yeah, what I learned is so there's the males and they're like 4 meters long or something. And then they have as many as 30 females that are there.
Harem.
Yes, that's the word. I was trying to find a PC way to put it.
Sorry, I've just gone straight in with a harem. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go around the river bend and then there's another male croc with another 30 babes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. So being a crocodile, not bad.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you feel refreshed though? Recovered from the election campaign?
I'm recharged.
Recharged.
Ready to go.
Well, I'm glad that you are because your time off is done.
And the news has not stopped while I've been away.
It has not stopped, and we're going to be starting overseas now because a story that we've been covering for the best part of a month and a half has finally come to an end, or has it? Potentially could be appeals. We'll see. But Johnny Depp has won his defamation trial against ex-wife Amber Heard.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes.
So pretty definitive there from the jury and their findings, but the reaction from Depp's supporters outside the court has been quite something when that was handed out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just don't know how to feel about that because I think it is fair to say that throughout this whole trial, the court of public opinion, be it outside the courtroom like we just heard there or online, has been overwhelmingly in support of Johnny Depp.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, have you found that? I've found that a little bit because I'm not sure if there's any real winners here. I know the jury has found that Johnny Depp, I think they've awarded him $15 million in damages, saying that, yes, Amber Heard maliciously did defame him in an opinion piece that she wrote for the Washington Times in 2018, where she referred to herself as a public figure of domestic abuse. She didn't mention Depp during that. Since then, during this trial, which is not a criminal trial, we've had such explicit details about what really just is a toxic relationship, right?
Yeah, well, I've heard it described by a PR communications expert as a murder-suicide.
Wow.
In the sense that Johnny Depp was trying to recover his reputation, has not really done that in any meaningful sense, and also taken Amber Heard down with him in the process. So I don't think that either of them come out of this smelling of roses. What do you think?
I think, and, you know, I am by far a PR expert, but I think that this has been a smart move by Johnny Depp.
Do you think?
Yeah, I actually do. I reckon that for his reputation, I do think that it was damaged by that article. That's now been proven in the court over there in the US, in this civil case. But I know that my own perception of him changed when that came out and all the allegations came out, and, you know, he wasn't able to sign on for the 6th, I think it was, Pirates of the Caribbean film because the company didn't want anything to do with him. You know, the Harry Potter franchise films, Fantastic Beasts, like he was meant to be, I think, in the 3rd movie, and then was dropped from that. And to be honest, I remember when he was named in that series, it did affect me wanting to go. And this is without really knowing any of the details, but it had that immediate effect on me. So I think that by doing this, there was an element of maybe him not really having too much to lose with this.
Well, but don't you think, though, so I think it's probably more likely that he's going to emerge from this and get back into blockbusters, probably. I think that Hollywood may forgive him some of the things that did come out that were pretty gross. But don't you think that there's another big section of the movie-going public who probably are on Amber Heard's side and might think twice about paying for a ticket for a movie he's in, given what we've heard?
I think maybe more so with other actors. Maybe they'll have an issue signing on to a production if he's in it, if he's going to co-star. Like people like who've been very outspoken in the past, like a Brie Larson.
Yep.
You know, I'm not sure if I'm going to ever see that. I don't know how that would quite picture. Although, in saying this, I was talking about it with my 2 best girlfriends, and their reaction to the news was, I asked them straight out, because it was kind of like, they were like, oh, I think that this is the right decision. Maybe justice has been served here. And I found that very interesting because I've just followed this whole thing with kind of like a morbid interest, I guess. It's kind of like you feel bad for being entertained by it because it is so gross in a lot of ways, but then also finding yourself just going back and back for more, trying to get the details of what's going on with these 2 incredibly famous people. But I asked them straight out. I was like, would you go see a movie with him again? And they said, him, yes, her, no.
Wow.
Which I found really weird. I was like, because I think both of them have not come out of this great. Johnny Depp's reputation, I think, has been patched together, and Amber Heard's has been torn apart. But I feel that is more so maybe a sign of just how women versus men, high-profile women versus men, you know, where society is kind of positioned to see that anyway. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, right? So, you know, this is kind of a sort of seen as a Me Too court case. But as you said earlier, it wasn't a criminal case. And it's really important for people to see it in those terms. So it was about Amber writing this op-ed that defamed Depp.
Yes.
And in the course of the trial, all this stuff came up about, you know, and detail allegations about him abusing her. And, you know, the jury at the end of the day did not find that there was evidence to support those claims. So I guess it's really interesting, you know, some people have been like, oh, this is going to hurt anyone who wants to accuse someone in the future. But haven't the allegations been aired? Hasn't justice been done in the sense that the allegations have been put, evidence has been put, and they were weighed up and rejected? So isn't that how the justice system should work?
Yes, but I think the justice system is different to the court of public opinion.
True.
So I think that the justice that court demands, being public opinion, is far, far different than what potentially, you know, a civil case or the allegations or the evidence that we have seen may pertain to as well. Now I think will be incredibly difficult for both parties to move on That's what they're hoping for, though, and that's what Depp's legal team is certainly hoping for.
Today's verdict confirms what we have said from the beginning, that the claims against Johnny Depp are defamatory and unsupported by any evidence.
Now that the jury has reached its conclusive verdict, it's time to turn the page and look to the future.
So both parties have also released statements now. Johnny Depp's camp, he says that he's thanked the jury because over the course of 6 years, he says finally now he has his life back. Intrigued to see what he may sign on for in the future, what that first role is going to be. But for Amber Heard, she talks about how now it will be even more difficult for women who have been allegedly abused to speak up and speak out, because once again, this is just an example, in her words, of a woman who's done that being publicly humiliated. It's interesting.
It is. I think another aspect of this that's important is just the different caliber of the legal teams.
Yeah.
Like Depp's legal team ran rings around Amber Heard's. Some of the things that came out, or like the witnesses that Amber Heard put up, were very strange.
Yeah. And also then, I mean, even the ones that she allowed Johnny Depp to call, like the Kate Moss incident, her legal team should have been like, do not shush.
Right?
Yeah, don't say anything like that.
And there were a lot of moments like that, and like there were moments where Amber Heard kind of got caught in lies on the stand, or like trying to massage the truth that did not look good for her. And I kind of think that's a big factor about the way it played out. And it comes down to dollars, doesn't it? She probably couldn't afford as good a legal team as Johnny had.
I'm just happy that we don't live in the US, and as far as I know, cases like this are not televised to millions and millions of people.
I mean, that might be good for Flash.
I mean, isn't that a takeaway?
Yeah. Maybe we should start the petition.
Hey, it's I mean...
Open justice.
The number of eyeballs
that
this case has
Indeed.
is incredible.
Anyway, we'll work on that.
Remember, Flash drivers, if you're loving the podcast, let us know. Subscribe, leave 5-star reviews, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everyone. We are not picky. We want you to listen to us because you have to be across the news. You have to be. And how better to do it than with J.Law and me, Flash Drive.
Georgie, let's return home now. And our new Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has appointed his new cabinet. And there's a big point of difference to a lot of the cabinets in the past. More women than ever before on the front bench. That's got to be something to applaud, isn't it?
I think so. I think this is huge. I also think of special mention seeing Linda Burney sworn in as the first female Indigenous minister, but the first female Indigenous Affairs minister is really quite something. I found that her swearing in quite moving. In terms of there being far more women than ever before, especially if we look at just the main part of the cabinet, so 10 women in that. And I think Scott Morrison had the previous record with 7. So Anthony Albanese has been very quick to be like, no, this is different. We're going to do what we've said we've done. And I know that Labor is far more in favour of quotas than a coalition or a Liberal government. But I think it can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
Because finally the cabinet, I think, is starting to reflect more of the constituents. And seeing someone like Annika Wells rocking up at the swearing-in ceremony, who's now the new Minister for Aged Care, seeing her rock up, and she had her twins, her younger daughter, her husband was there carrying all the paraphernalia that goes with having young kids. I thought that was such a wonderful moment too, and really typical of modern Australia.
Well, there were a lot of babies running around during the swearing in.
There were.
And it actually is really good because it reflects the juggle and the obstacles that a lot of families throughout Australia have, and like Labor's put front and centre on its agenda about trying to make childcare cheaper, so to get more women into work. So it's kind of like was reflected during the swearing in.
Yeah. Do you think that was purposeful, or is that just like a happy coincidence? Just a happy reflection.
Maybe it was purposeful. I mean, it's not unusual for ministers to bring along their kids to these events, but there were a lot of kids running around. A lot.
And to be fair, you can tell that I don't have children because during the swearing in ceremony I was listening and there was like babies crying and I was like, oh, I can't hear what they're saying.
Shut up, that kid.
The minister for what now?
Yeah. But, yeah, so Labor's done well. It's put its money where its mouth is and stacked the front bench with women. That's great. The one thing it hasn't done that the Liberal Party has a new leadership. It's got a woman as the deputy. The Nationals have a woman as the deputy. Labor still has two men in the top two roles.
Yes.
Is that a problem in terms of the optics?
Potentially. I think it's one maybe to see. I would like to see how the female MPs who've been promoted to the front bench, how they go. Because, yes, it is a very experienced cabinet for Albanese, one that he's put together. Lots of these people, be it men or women, do have cabinet experience, and a lot of them do obviously have shadow cabinet experience. But I would like to see how they go, because there are faces like Christy McBain, who's the new Minister for Regional Development, who, you know, she was Bega Mayor 2 years ago and is now in the federal cabinet. So that is a meteoric rise by anyone's standing. And a lot of Australians don't know who they are. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity that they have this opportunity and this platform now, but I would love to see them perform so that Australia can get a little bit more familiar with them too.
Yep.
In saying that, this will sound a little bit hypocritical, I don't think too many Australians actually know who Richard Marles is.
No. Well, he's a pretty forgettable guy.
But and I think that, so I do find it interesting. I think that may have been a misstep there, because in my mind, Tanya Plibersek.
Oh, interesting you say that. So, I mean, Tanya Plibersek has got to be the most impressive member of, like, one of the most, certainly the most impressive woman in the lower house, most experienced, most well liked,
most well recognised,
been around the block.
Yeah.
She seems to me like a great choice as deputy leader.
Yes.
Yet, during the announcement about who's getting which portfolios, she has been in the shadow education portfolio throughout the opposition's tenure, but when it came to announcing who would get that portfolio, she did not. That was given to Jason Clare, and instead she was given the environment portfolio. What did you think about that? Was that a demotion?
I think it was a sideways step. I don't know if we'd call it a sideways promotion or a demotion, but it was certainly a sideways step.
Well, Anthony Albanese was asked about this week. Here's what he had to say.
I spoke to Tanya about it. She's very happy to take up the issue of environment and water. There are major challenges on the environment. We know that the impact of climate change is having a significant impact. This is the largest number of women who have ever served in an Australian cabinet, with 10 women in the cabinet. In addition to that, in terms of the ministry, there are 13 women in the ministry, and 19 front benches.
Well, look, environment, it's not a bad portfolio. However, Labor carves out climate change from that. Climate change went
key,
to... Right. And that's where it's going to happen throughout this parliament, because, you know, besides them talking about childcare, the other big thing is the environment, getting real on climate change. So I imagine she will work in close step with Chris Bowen, who got that portfolio.
Another man in a very senior portfolio.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But I can't help but think it's a little bit of a demotion, because I think what they wanted to do was promote Jason Clare because he performed so well.
Incredibly well. We've spoken about that.
Yeah, performed really well during the campaign. But I don't know why Tanya had to cop it. I think that they should be putting her front and centre. But, you know, it all comes down to factional games, doesn't it?
Yes. And this is something that I have to admit I probably wasn't as across or aware about pre-election campaign, and all those stories started to come out about where's Tanya, why isn't she front and centre, all of this. And I do think, therefore, there has to be, they can deny it all they want, but there has to be some factional, you know, opposition between, or competition between Anthony Albanese and Tanya Plibersek.
Yes.
And therefore, this sideways step for her in the portfolios of environment and water. Environment without climate change, there's an argument there to be like, how much impact can you actually have or influence in this meaningful influence in this party. Also water, I mean, just from other sources that I've heard from, it's just an absolute shit show of a portfolio, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's going to be a hard one for her to maybe even as well, like get sunk into and see that meaningful change. I'm also thinking at the moment about Christina Keneally and how she's feeling, getting ousted from the parliament because, you know, her role as shadow Home Affairs Minister, you would assume that she would have taken over as Home Affairs Minister. That's now gone to Claire O'Neill, who I think is an interesting appointment because, again, another one that Australia may not be too familiar with. I think she is a bit of a bulldog. I think she does have that grit, and she's formidable for the seniority of that role. But there is certainly an argument that really her and Penny Wong are the only women from the most, you know, overpopulated cabinet with women that we've ever had who really do have very senior positions.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how they go. I mean, the thing is, you know, the women want a seat at the table,
yes.
and now they've got the chance to prove themselves, and I think they'll do well.
I agree. Now, J.Law, of course, with the pandemic, so many things that put in the bin, burn them, never want to see them again, have hated it. However, one takeaway, an interesting one that I think that people have loved, and it's been a welcome adoption, has been the ability to work from home. Now, though, the world's richest man, or one of them, is he the official world's richest man now? Elon Musk?
I don't know.
Let's say yes.
He's one of. Him versus Bezos. Fighting it out in space.
Yeah, but the Tesla chairman is now waging war on this practice. He has released an email or sent out an email to his staff saying that you have to be in the office for at a minimum 40 hours a week, and if not, we'll assume that you've resigned, essentially, which I think is ballsy. What are your thoughts? Because firstly, where do you stand on the work from home?
Well, I think that the ultimate is about half-half, right?
Yes.
Which I think is what a lot of companies want to get their workers back to. But I know, just talking to people, that in Australia, we're nowhere near that. I think a lot of people might come in one day a week. Some people I talk to are like, I've been in like twice since Omicron, you know? So, I mean...
Do you think that that's a bad thing? Or is
it
like, what's your... Because as, you know, our listeners do know, you are my boss. So you have to, you know, manage these type of things and these questions and these requests from staff about when it is applicable and when it is good for people to work from home and when they have to come in.
Yeah, so the way that I approach it, which is, I hope HR isn't listening, but this is the way I approach it. My expectation is that you come in about half the time. And the reason is you want people to have that flexibility. I think people really like it. And, you know, you can do your washing while you're, you know, between breaks. That's fine. Or, you know, get a package delivered, whatever it is. But I think that if you are not at work or in the office or seeing your colleagues in person for months on end, I think that the chances of you becoming disengaged is much higher.
Yep.
And so I think that's the reason. So, and then we, you know, we actually roster people in or out. And I think that that's better because it's sort of like people know, okay, well, it's this day I'm going to go in.
Yes.
And it's sort of, it's where I think the temptation is if there is no real hard and fast obligation to go in, you just won't.
Yes.
And, you know, so we roster people in, but we keep in some flexibility if you for some reason you want to stay home that day.
So you're not
fine.
Going full Musk. You're
not
like,
full
you
Musk.
must be in.
Not full Musk, but I think it's interesting what you say, right? Because the tech world tends to dictate how the rest of the world looks.
Everyone follows suit, right? I know that one of my best girlfriends, she lives in America and she works for Facebook. And they were one of the first companies, like when COVID was just like a random word that we were mispronouncing and didn't really know what it was. They were already working from home. She's not gone back into the office yet, you know? And the tech really did lead that space in being like, oh no, this is a thing, we can do this.
Yeah.
And then everyone else around the world was like, oh yeah, that's
the
possible.
Internet. The internet.
Yeah, remember that? Wi-Fi, yay.
What about you though? Because so I have the luxury of like being able to work from home about half the time, but you, for Flash, you need to be in the office every day so that you can record your daily news updates.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
are you a bit resentful towards me? Be honest.
I do get jealous a lot of the time, especially when my alarm goes off at 6 and I'm like, okay, it's time to get up. And I'm like, you know what would be nice? A home studio. But it's
Or
one
like
of those,
being in your pajamas all day.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Although when people... I mean, you've seen me in the office. I'm always in athleisure wear, just business up top.
Yeah.
Comfy elasticated pants down the bottom.
Don't tell the viewers that.
know,
Don't
I
ruin
know.
the illusion.
So I'm in as close to pajamas as I can get in a corporate setting. But it's something that I've always, because my job is to be here, right? Like it's to be in the studio. So would I love to be able to do that? Yeah, but I think it's more so I'm one of those people that's like, because I've never had it. I've never had the work from home. Throughout the pandemic, I was one of the lucky ones who was able to still be employed every single day, but I was also getting that social interaction by going into the office every day of lockdown, the millions of lockdowns that we had in Melbourne. And I think it's just something that I'm like, oh, would I like that? Is that good? Because I've never had it. So I'm like, would that actually be good? Would that be fun? I don't know.
I don't think it would be good for you because you're such a people person.
I know.
Like I feel like that's snuffing your torch.
I know. It would be, yeah. I mean, I do. And that's, to be honest, that is why I love coming into the office. Like, yes, I have to for my role. But really it's when, our producers are there and I can just be like, hey guys, hey, what's going on? What's going on? I'm probably really disrupting their workflow. But I need some entertainment in my life. So I'll be like, hey guys, what's happening? Like
100%.
details, what's going on? So I think there's certainly an argument to have people do both. And I think if you can, I think it's great because I also think one of the good things to come out of the pandemic is that a lot of people are prioritising more that balance or have at least got a taste of the balance. And they're like, that's actually quite good.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The reason to go in is not, I mean, there's having meetings in person and all that kind of stuff, or like, the reason to go in is to shoot the shit with your friends. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So if you haven't been into the office in a while, you should consider it. But don't go full Musk.
Don't go full Musk. Not good. PSA. We have reached the time of the podcast, J.Law, for which we promote things that are coming up on Flash, the platform for which we both work. And I'm actually really excited by what we've got coming up because I am a self-confessed Lizian, not a monarchist. I'm a Lizian.
A Lizian?
I love the Queen.
Oh, I thought that was like, that weird thing about how celebrities are actually lizard people. I thought that's what you were saying. A Lizian.
Lizian.
You're pro Lizzie the second.
I'm pro Lizzie the second. Like, I've just always loved her. Growing up in Brisbane, my family was just always obsessed with what the royals were doing. The monarchy can, take or leave. However, the Queen, love her. She reminds me of my grandma, always a big fan. And she's got a pretty special event coming up, I believe.
She sure does. And yeah, Flash is going to have lots of coverage. So it's her Platinum Jubilee, and there'll be celebrations from Thursday right through to Sunday throughout the whole week on BBC World News. So you can tune in to things like the Trooping the Colour. There's going to be a lot of kind of in-depth specials on the Queen and her life throughout the next couple of days. So tune into BBC World News for all the celebrations.
Yeah, and not to be too much of a killjoy with this, but, Lizzie, she's got some mobility issues going on. We don't know how many more Jubilee celebrations she's got ahead of her.
That's true.
So consume the content while you can, basically.
Yeah. And I feel the same about her. I think a lot of Aussies do as well, have that affection towards her, no matter how you feel about whether Australia should be a republic or not. I think people can get behind
to be in public life for as many decades as she has is just insanity. Would you be a royal?
I mean, I wouldn't mind a palace or two, You'd
take it. If someone was like, but imagine all the public engagements you'd have to do.
Yeah, but it's just like working, like everyone else has to work.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
There has to be some payoff.
Maybe. I would take the jewellery.
You would? Yeah. You'd look great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would love that. I will also take my bonuses for working at Flash Drive in jewellery if you would like.
Okay. Yeah. Noted.
Yeah, noted. Tune in next week, guys. Watch our YouTube stream. See if I've got fully decked out in the crown
Look out for the bling.
J.Law, that's it. We're done.
See you next week.
So if you're a news addict and you love content like this, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Did I actually put it right? I think so.